The shocking truth behind the brutal death of France's most fearsome monarch. You won't believe it. They say history is written by the victors, but what about the victims? Picture this: King Louis XIV, revered and feared, known for his lavish court and iron-fisted rule, lay dead in his opulent chamber, surrounded by the finest luxuries. Yet, beneath the layers of silk and gold, secrets festered. From the moment the news broke, the palace erupted in chaos, whispers echoing like a chilling wind. Who really had the power to silence a king? The initial report claimed a sudden illness, fever, chills, then silence. But lurking in the shadows, one strange detail stood out: his final moments were marked by an unnerving stillness, as if the very air held its breath. Servants who rushed to his side described an eerie glow enveloping him, as if the spirit world itself had come to collect its due. The courtiers, dressed in their dazzling attire, could only gasp in shock, eyes wide with terror, as they swore they heard the sound of distant whispers, beckoning him into the unknown. Is it possible that a monarch so powerful could die with such a pitiful whimper? Rumors streaked through the corridors. Some claimed he was cursed, others spoke of a betrayal inside his trusted inner circle. As tension thickened like fog rolling over the Seine, fear spilled over into the bustling streets of Paris. The masses murmured of dark magic and forbidden alliances. A comet blazed across the night sky, prompting wild claims that it was a bad omen. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The king's body, laid out before the mourning nobles, told a story of its own. His once majestic presence now seemed small, almost fragile, as if his immense rule had vanished, leaving only a shell behind. Was it all a facade? As they gathered, some secretly thrilled by the vacuum of power, others fearful of retribution, a chill crept through the assembly. Shadows danced across the walls, whispering secrets shared among the dead. Who held the truth? What hidden forces conspired against him? As they prepared for his burial, the unanswered questions twisted tighter around the gathered mourners. Was it fate, betrayal, or even darker magic that claimed this iron monarch? In that moment, the room held its breath, waiting for the next shocking revelation to drop like a guillotine blade. What would they uncover next? In the dim light of the grand hall, tension simmered as courtiers exchanged furtive glances. The air felt thick, almost electric, as secrets threatened to burst free. Rumors of betrayal floated through the palace, coiling around the gilded walls. Who among them had the motive to end the king's reign so abruptly? Countess de Beaufort, her trembling hands clutching her pearls, whispered to her companion, "I heard it was a poison fit for a king, administered by someone he trusted." Her voice was barely audible, fear evident in her wide eyes. An uneasy murmur rippled through the gathering, a collective gasp hung in the air like a poised blade. Suddenly, the doors of the hall swung open, and in strode the king's chief advisor, the Duke of Montmorency. His face was as pale as the marble statues that adorned the chamber, his eyes dark with concern. The murmurs quieted as he approached the lifeless figure on the ornate dais. "We must not jump to conclusions," he proclaimed, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of dread. "We owe it to His Majesty's memory to investigate before accusations are cast in the wind like autumn leaves." And yet, seated at the back, a shadowy figure observed all. Madame de Pompadour, the king's former favorite, had been discreetly summoned. Her presence ignited sparks of curiosity and envy in equal measure. With a smirk barely concealed beneath her veil, she watched the chaos unfold, a glimmer of satisfaction in her sharp gaze. Might she hold the key to unraveling this deadly enigma? Could she possess knowledge about the currents flowing beneath the surface, currents that could sweep the guilty to ruin? News spread like wildfire through Paris. Common folk clamored, blaming the nobles, the church, the very gods themselves for a king who had commanded respect and fear. In taverns, hubbub mingled with the scent of stale ale, as tales of dark pacts and witchcraft burned brightly in the dim flames of flickering candles. "They say he was meeting with a sorceress," an intoxicated patron exclaimed, old and wise beyond his years. "She promised him eternal life, but it came at a price." Beneath the layers of whispered rumors, something deeper stirred. It felt as if the city itself held its breath, waiting for the inevitable storm that would surely follow. The air crackled with anticipation, the populace on the edge of despair and intrigue, as the comet continued its haunting journey across the night sky. Meanwhile, back at the palace, the Duke convened a secret meeting with Lady de Beaufort and a few trusted allies. "There are whispers of a conspiracy, a plot against our king," he said, urgency in his tone cutting through the stillness. "We cannot allow this to hang over us like a shroud. We must uncover the truth, or we risk losing not just our reputation, but our very lives." As they huddled close, shadows flickered, echoing their fears. Outside, the comet blazed brighter, a chilling harbinger in the night. They could not ignore the dark forces at play. But who would betray them? Unbeknownst to them, as they plotted, the very walls seemed to listen, absorbing every word as if the palace were alive, its heart beating with the secrets it guarded. In that unsettling moment, an icy realization washed over the Duke. The enemy might already be among them. And deep within the castle's dungeons, a figure stirred, bound by chains but free in thought, plotting revenge against those who had wronged him. A grin stretched across his face, a chilling smile that promised nothing but chaos. What would happen when the forged bonds of loyalty began to crack? What dark schemes awaited beneath the surface? In the palace's dimly lit chamber, whispers swirled like smoke. Each council member, shadows weaving through their hearts, felt the chill of betrayal. The Duke of Montmorency paced, his boots striking the wooden floor like thunderclaps, tension seemingly ringing from every corner. "Gather your wits," he urged, breathing hard as their fears crystallized into a desperate need for clarity. "We won't solve this mystery by hidden sorrows or sour faces." Lady de Beaufort clenched her pearls tighter, her breath coming in uneven gasps as she gazed around the room. "But who?" she gasped, her voice trembling like a fragile reed in the wind. "Who would dare go so far?" Her wide eyes darted from face to face, seeking some glimmer of honesty buried beneath the mounting deception. Across the room, Madame de Pompadour smiled insidiously, her carefully painted facade hiding much darker truths. She knew things she had witnessed and choices made in the silk-draped cloisters of hidden meetings. Watching her former lovers and confidants unravel, she felt a twisted satisfaction, like a puppeteer whose strings twitched ever so slightly as chaos unfolded. Outside, the cobbled streets of Paris seethed with an unexpected energy. People leaned in to hear gossip like it was scripture, potent with intrigue and fear. An old woman with crooked fingers cried out, "The king's ghost walks among us," adding more fuel to the midnight fires of superstition burning in the hearts of the masses. "We must appease the spirits." A hush fell over the square, punctured only by the sound of a distant bell tolling midnight, sharp and urgent. Back in the throne room, Montmorency stopped pacing, piercing the silence with an accusation, "Some among us must be complicit." A sudden hush enveloped the group, and the shadows seemed to shift, conspiring alongside them. "We cannot let our fear consume us," he warned. "We have to confront the darkness, for our very lives depend on it." To his horror, the suggestion hung heavy, as if the walls themselves conspired. "Confront the darkness?" Lady de Beaufort murmured, fear dancing in her eyes. "What if the darkness seeks to consume us?" Before anyone could respond, a chilling sound echoed from the dungeons below, a metallic clinking of chains. All eyes turned towards the grand staircase leading down into the abyss. A spectral figure loomed, its silhouette framed by the flickering torchlight that barely illuminated the path. He stepped into the light, his face a mask of fury and vengeance. It was Pierre, the former aide to the king, an unfortunate soul wrongly imprisoned and now harboring a storm of rage. "You took everything from me. Your time of reckoning has arrived. His voice was venomous, laced with years of betrayal. Chaos erupted. The council members sprang back, fear flashing on their faces as the once loyal aide threatened everything they had built. Was he the key to unraveling the conspiracy? Or merely a pawn in someone else's game? Madame de Pompadour's smirk vanished, replaced by a frown of concern. Perhaps she had underestimated the depths of revenge and the twisting paths of fate. The shadows danced eagerly, aware that the balance could tilt with the spilling of blood. As the tension drew tighter, palpable enough to snap, Montmorency knew they had to act. "We'll hear him out." The words left his lips like a prayer. Each heart gripped with the weight of uncertainty. Would Pierre unveil the truth or lead them further into the looming darkness? They turned to him, eyes wide with questions. Would his tale lead to clarity, or would it open a chasm of despair? And deep within, the castle's heart thudded ominously, listening for every secret, every betrayal yet to unfold. A storm was brewing in the shadows, and only one question remained: who would emerge from it unscathed? Pierre's eyes burned with fury, a tempest unleashed. He stepped forward, the flickering light catching the glint of unyielding resolve on his face. "You think your whispers will drown out the truth?" he growled. "These walls have ears, and so does the world beyond them. You sit here, draped in silk and pretense, while I languished in a cell, rotting away for a crime I didn't commit." Lady de Beaufort took a shaky breath, her heart racing like a caged bird against her ribcage. The glances shared among the council festered with suspicion. Who among them could be harboring such resentment? Were they truly innocent, or had they all turned their backs just to save their own skins? Madame de Pompadour stepped into the fray, her voice smooth but laced with defiance. "We all suffer in this court, Pierre. What you faced was unjust, no doubt. Yet, you are not the only one wronged here. The king's death left a shadow over us all." Pierre scoffed, throwing back his head, as if to shake off the weight of her words. "The king's death." His laugh crushed the silence. "He was murdered. Even you know that." Gasps erupted, rising like wind through the trees. Montmorency clenched his jaw, his mind racing. "Murdered? The court has proclaimed it an accident." "Accident?" A bitter smile twisted Pierre's lips. "They poisoned him. I saw it. Drank from the wrong cup while they toasted his demise." The room seemed to shrink, the air growing heavier, prickling with an unseen danger. Lady de Beaufort's hands trembled as she fought to regain her composure. "You expect us to believe you?" "Believe what you wish," Pierre shot back. "But whatever fate awaits me, I will take down the true conspirators. You're all tangled in this web." He paused, gaze sweeping over each face, sending chills down spines, igniting suspicion. "One among you is a traitor." A murmur slithered through the room, doubt invading the hearts of those present. Madame de Pompadour's eyes flickered, calculating and courageous. Was her carefully woven world about to unravel? "Enough." Montmorency's voice boomed. "We will not fall to panic. If there is truth in your ramblings, we need certainty. You will tell us everything." But Pierre laughed darkly. "Everything? That would take more than one evening." He let the words linger, hanging heavy as the shadows closed in, thick with malice and uncertainty. Outside, the storm that had been brewing in the streets reflected the turmoil within the castle walls. Thunder rumbled, echoing the unease coursing through the council. Rain began to pelt the rooftop, a cacophony of nature adding to their dread. "Reveal one name." Montmorency pressed, eyes narrowing, demanding answers. "You owe us that much after what you've suffered." Silence swallowed the room, each heartbeat echoing like a drum. Pierre's jaw tightened, a flicker of hatred blazing in his eyes. "One name? You can handle more than that." It was not just the king they sought a throne. Realization crashed over them like a wave, their collective breath hitched. Montmorency exchanged glances with Lady de Beaufort and the others. They were woven deeper into this deadly tapestry than they ever imagined. Who posed the greatest threat? And more importantly, when would the truth come crashing down like the storm outside? As tension pulsed in the flickering light, a shadow slipped outside the door, listening, waiting. What secrets were lurking just beyond their grasp? The flickering flames danced like anxious spirits as Pierre leaned forward, eyes blazing. You want a name? He spat, his voice low and menacing. The one who made a toast while poisoning a king. It isn't just one, there's a whole cabal. You think I'm the only one who saw it? Madame de Pompadour stepped back, a storm of emotions swirling in her chest. How had it come to this? She had played her part well in the grand game of court, but now, doubts gnawed at her. Was she a pawn too, or the queen? Chaos erupted. Calm down. Montmorency shouted, but it fell on deaf ears. Voices rose like a tide, crashing against the stone walls. Accusations flew, old grudges resurfaced, and the very air grew electric, thick with tension. Pierre! Yelled a voice from the shadows, cutting through the discord. The council fell silent, and all heads turned to see a figure slipping into the flickering light, a young man, pale and breathless. It was Charles, the king's pageboy, his eyes wide with terror. You must listen. The truth, it's worse than we thought. What do you know? Montmorency asked, his brow furrowing. They took a life more than just the king's. They were hunting something, Charles stammered, hands shaking. I overheard plans. They intend to change everything, unravel power. A palpable tension surged through the gathered council members. Their grim expressions hardened. What power? Lady de Beaufort demanded, her voice bearing an edge. If they're after more than just the throne, we need to know the extent of it. Charles trembled as he relayed the secrets he had overheard, whispers of a hidden treasure, an ancient relic believed to grant power to those who possessed it, a relic that could disrupt the delicate balance of the court. Who has it? Pierre's voice was sharp, slicing through the heavy air. I don't know. It was all very hushed, but they spoke of a meeting, a gathering in the catacombs beneath the castle. No. Montmorency interjected, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. That place has long been forgotten. You can't be serious. Serious as the doom that hangs over us. Charles shot back, his panic rising. They plan to eliminate anyone who gets in their way, and we are all in their sights. A collective gasp echoed around the chamber, and then a murmur whipped through the crowd like steel rustling against sharpened blades. They were not merely plotting to kill, but to seize a power that could change the course of their nation forever. Madame de Pompadour stepped forward, anxiety clawing at her throat. We have to act. If they're really meeting down there, we need to confront them before it's too late. Before anyone could reply, a loud crash echoed from outside, shaking the walls. The flickering light dimmed, as if darkness had crept in to swallow their sanity. What was that? Lady de Beaufort gasped, eyes wide. The door swung open violently, revealing a cloaked figure silhouetted against the tempest outside, lightning illuminating their sharp silhouette. The council braced themselves, hearts racing in frenzy, unsure of the visitor's intent. Any hope they had of preserving their fragile unity hung by a thread. What do you want? Montmorency challenged, stepping forward, anger mingling with fear. As the figure stepped closer, shadows parted to reveal a familiar face, one they each thought had been lost to betrayal. What you seek cannot be found within these walls, they said, voice hauntingly familiar. But it can be found in the depths below. Follow me, if you dare. The storm outside raged on, refusing to subside, and once again their lives teetered on the edge of chaos. Who would return from the depths, and what truth would they unearth? The air crackled with anticipation as the familiar voice hung heavy in the room. It was a voice that carried echoes of betrayal, secrets locked away too long in the shadows of their memories. Madame de Pompadour's heart raced, a tempest of emotions swirling within her. You, she breathed, an uncertain mixture of hope and dread tinging her words. The cloaked figure stepped closer, the light dancing across their face now revealed. It was Etienne, the king's former advisor. He had vanished, leaving nothing but whispered rumors of treachery and loss. Now he stood before them, cloaked in mystery and menace. "We thought you were dead." Charles erupted, his voice trembling, breaking through the tension like a knife through silk. Etienne's lips curled into a ghost of a smile. Dead, or perhaps simply waiting for the right moment to reappear. He glanced around, letting his gaze linger on each council member, gauging their reactions. "The powers that plot against you are more dangerous than you realize. They will strike when you least expect it." Montmorency's brow furrowed deeper. "Why should we trust you? You vanished when we needed you most. How do we know you're not part of this cabal?" "I have no love for these conspirators," Etienne replied, his voice a low growl, frustration seeping through his words. "They cast me out just as they intend to cast out anyone who threatens their plans." A tremor of sincerity rippled in his tone, leaving an uneasy silence in its wake. "But I can lead you to the truth, if you have the courage to follow." Madame de Pompadour exchanged glances with the others, weighing their options. "And what truth lies below?" She couldn't mask the tinge of fear from her voice. Etienne leaned closer, his voice descending into a whisper, laced with urgency. "An ancient relic, yes, but its power goes beyond riches or dominance. It carries a curse, one that can destroy all who dare pursue it recklessly." The candle flames flickered wildly, casting elongated shadows of doubt across the walls. "Then we destroy it," Lady de Beaufort spoke up, her resolve solidifying, her heart pounding with newfound determination. "Destroying it is easier said than done. Only those of pure heart may touch its surface. Those who seek it for power will find only ruin," Etienne replied, his eyes piercing into theirs. Outside, the storm raged on, wind howling like a banshee, seeping into their minds and fueling their fears. "This can't wait," Charles said, desperation clawing at his throat. "They may already be planning their attack. Let us move, then." Montmorency commanded, the urgency in his voice rallying the council. "We'll gather supplies and set forth at once." But as they hurried to prepare, a thought gnawed at Madame de Pompadour. Their intentions felt muddled. Were they truly ready to confront this darkness? With Etienne as their guide, the path ahead appeared daunting, riddled with unknown dangers. "I can't shake this feeling that we're being watched," she murmured to herself, glancing back at Etienne, whose eyes held secrets yet unspoken. As the last preparations were made, an urgent flash of lightning illuminated the windows, revealing a fleeting shadow darting past. The council members froze, the room enveloped in an unsettling silence. Was it paranoia, or had their enemies already begun to close in? "Time waits for no one," Etienne snapped, turning swiftly toward the door. "Follow me, but be vigilant. The deeper we go, the more perilous our journey will become." With their hearts pounding and breaths held tight, the council stepped behind Etienne, crossing the threshold into the weighty darkness. The echo of their footsteps lingered ominously as they ventured into the unknown, the looming question in all their minds: would they unearth truth or folly beneath the castle? What awaited them in the ominous catacombs, and would they survive the trials that lay ahead? The catacombs swallowed them whole, a damp chill wrapping around their skin like a shroud. The narrow passageway led deeper into the earth, every step echoing like a looming heartbeat. Madame de Pompadour's heart hammered against her chest, the weight of dread hovering over her. Etienne moved ahead, his cloak billowing behind him like a spectre in the dark. Shadows clawed at the walls, twisting under the flickering light of their torches. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice low and protective, but it did little to ease the tightness in her throat. What if we're walking into a trap?" Charles whispered, fear lacing his voice. His eyes darted around, looking for threats hidden within the bones of the castle. The council members exchanged anxious glances, their resolve beginning to fray. "I don't believe he would lead us astray," Madame de Pompadour replied softly, but even she wasn't sure about Etienne's loyalty. The uncertainty festered, growing roots of suspicion within their group. Suddenly, a sharp clatter echoed from the darkness. They froze, hearts racing as the noise bounced off the stone walls. A distant laugh or a whispered curse. Sweat beaded at Madame de Pompadour's temples when a familiar face emerged from the shadows. Louis, the king's brother. What are you doing here? Etienne's voice turned cold, slicing through the tension. I could ask you the same, Louis replied, stepping into the dim light. His eyes sparkled with mischief, infusing a sly tension that left the air brittle. Out here playing hero, are we? You'll find the darkness hard to navigate, my dear Etienne. A surge of anger and betrayal surged in Madame de Pompadour. You've aligned with the conspirators. She gasped, her voice barely a whisper. The satisfaction on Louis's face flickered briefly, then morphed into something darker. Oh no, I'm just an observer. But I see an opportunity here. He turned his attention to the rest of the council, fixing a sharp gaze on each one of them. You think you can just waltz in and reclaim what's not yours? How naive. Etienne stepped toward him, a feral intensity in his eyes. We don't have time for your games, Louis. This is bigger than you could ever understand. Oh, I understand more than you know, Louis said in a honeyed tone, his smile stretching unnaturally across his face. And it wouldn't take much to turn your little expedition into a nightmare. Madame de Pompadour felt a shiver race down her spine. What do you want? She asked, each word slipping out cautiously. I want the relic, of course. Hand it over, and I might just let you leave, but I can't promise there won't be a loss, he replied, his voice dripping with menace. The air thickened like a storm cloud ready to burst. Each council member held their breath, contemplating their next move. Etienne's face was set, but Madame de Pompadour could see a flicker of fear behind his steely facade. Louis, if you think we'll let you have it, you're sorely mistaken, Montmorency growled, stepping forward, fists clenched. We will fight you. Louis laughed, a sound that echoed through the passage, cold and mocking. You think you can challenge me? The darkness will consume you, just like it did the others. As the tension hung palpably in the air, a distant rumble deep within the catacombs pulsed, like a heartbeat waiting to unleash chaos. Without a moment's warning, the ground trembled, sending a cascade of dust swirling around them. Run! Etienne shouted, his urgency pulling them into motion. But even as they fled deeper into the labyrinth, Madame de Pompadour felt something gnawing at her gut, a realization that the real threat was not so much Louis but whatever lay ahead. Shadows loomed larger as the ground shook beneath their feet. Were they running toward salvation or into the gaping maw of doom? They charged down the corridor, breathless and panicked, as the walls whispered their secrets. Just as they rounded a corner, a piercing scream shattered the darkness, making them all stumble to a halt. What was that? Lady de Beaufort gasped, eyes as wide as saucers. Etienne paused, turning back to face them, his face paling. That, my friends, may be the first sign of what we truly face. Madame de Pompadour felt dread encircle her heart. What had they awakened in these depths? All she knew was that this was only just the beginning. The scream lingered in the air, a chilling reminder that they weren't alone in the labyrinthine confines of the catacombs. It echoed through the darkness, crawling under their skin, igniting panic in every heart. Madame de Pompadour's breath caught in her throat as she strained her ears. Had it been a trick of the shadows, or was a soul lost to the depths crying out for help or vengeance? Keep moving. Etienne barked, his voice sharp and commanding. The urgency sent adrenaline surging through them, propelling Madame de Pompadour forward, though every instinct screamed for her to turn back. Every crack and whisper became a potential threat in the claustrophobic darkness. They rushed deeper into the maze, trails of their torches flickering uncertainly like fireflies caught in a storm. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something metallic. A foreboding sensation coursed through Madame de Pompadour. It was as if the catacombs were alive, breathing in sync with their fear. Louis knows these tunnels like the back of his hand, Montmorency muttered, his voice trembling. What if this is all part of his plan? As they moved on, a low rumble echoed in the distance, the ground beneath their feet trembled again. They glanced at each other, eyes wide with terror. What was lurking in this dark abyss? Whatever it is, it's not just Louis we need to fear, Lady de Beaufort said, her voice barely rising above a whisper. The darkness has its own appetite. And then it happened. A crack split through the wall beside them, sending a shower of stone and dust raining down. The group recoiled, shielding their faces as the old, decaying structure groaned ominously. "Get back!" Etienne shouted, but it was too late. From the fracture crawled tendrils of shadow, lurking fingers extending toward them, seeming to pulse as if alive. The darkness twisted, and for a moment, Madame de Pompadour could swear she saw faces screaming, twisted faces pressed against the rock, their mouths agape in eternal wails. "Run! Just run!" Etienne was at the front, barely holding it together as he led the frantic escape. They darted past the crack into a wider chamber, a deafening silence met them in an eerie caress. The flickering torches cast a wavering glow against the stone walls, revealing niches where bones lay scattered victims of the last expedition. Had Louis sent them to join this grotesque display? Madame de Pompadour stumbled, catching herself on the cold stone, her heart racing. "What is this place?" "It feels like a grave," Charles whispered, his voice trembling with the weight of realization. From farther within the chamber, a faint whisper curled through the air. It was in a language she couldn't decipher, but the tone was unmistakable. It was a call, seductive and threatening. Then the floor beneath them began to tremble, tossing them like leaves in a tempest. A guttural roar thundered from the depths, shaking them to their core. The walls seemed to pulse, alive and eager. "Back! Back!" Etienne ordered, his voice raw with fear. Yet behind them, darkness unfurled like a malignant flower, sprawling wider as if to swallow them whole. Madame de Pompadour felt the cold grip of dread. This was no mere relic they sought. This was a curse, an ancient thing lying in wait for the uninvited. "Etienne, we need to find a way out." She shouted over the chaotic din, her mind racing against the tide of despair. "We'll find a way." Etienne yelled back, but even he couldn't mask the tremor in his voice. As they retreated further into the chamber, their torches flickering fearfully, Madame de Pompadour caught a glimpse of a silhouette, a figure emerging through the shroud of shadow. "Who is there?" she called out, a lump forming in her throat. The figure stepped forward, and in that moment, the world fell away. Madame de Pompadour's heart crashed in her chest. The face was familiar, eyes burning with an otherworldly light. "Welcome back to the dark," the figure whispered, a sadistic smile curling on his lips. A torrent of emotions crashed through her. How could this be? What horrors had she awakened? Who was this being, really? This quest was spiraling into chaos, and they were all trapped in its center. Madame de Pompadour's breath hitched, caught somewhere between disbelief and a primal urge to flee. The familiar face, twisted in a murky glee, belonged to none other than Louis himself, or Louis. But this was not the man she remembered. No warmth lit those eyes now. Instead, they glowed with a fathomless darkness that sent icy tendrils of terror snaking down her spine. "Louis?" she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. The shadow that cloaked him pulsed, as if alive, threatening to consume everything in its path. "Did you miss me?" he crooned, the tone sinister and dripping with malice. "I thought you'd join me in time." As he spoke, the shadows around him danced like demonic flames, casting eerie shapes against the stone walls. She had always feared the depths of his ambition, but this was different. The bond they once shared felt twisted, corrupted. "Help us!" Etienne cried, desperation mingling with disbelief. "We thought you were lost." "Lost?" Louis laughed, the sound grating on Madame de Pompadour's nerves. "Oh no, not lost. Transformed. I have become what this place desires. I am its keeper now." Lady de Beaufort stepped forward, her heart racing. "You're trapped in this darkness. You have to fight it. We can escape together." But Louis simply shook his head, a cruel smile creeping across his face. You don't understand, do you? This isn't about escape. I wield the power of the shadows now. You are the ones who intrude upon this domain. Madame de Pompadour felt dizzy. The walls echoed with whispers, the language incomprehensible yet undeniably seductive. Something primal and enticing lurked within those murmurs. She fought the pull with every ounce of willpower, trying to cling to the memory of the man she loved. But what man was left? Louis, fight it. She urged, stepping forward, reaching out. This isn't you. Do you remember our dreams? He stepped closer, shadows swirling around him like a cloak. The throne, the power, this is just the beginning. Join me, or remain as flesh and bone in these catacombs. The ground shook violently, a reminder of the entity lurking below. Panic surged through the group as the chamber began to close in around them. Montmorency stumbled, eyes wild. We have to do something. We need to go. No. Louis's voice rose, sharp as the crackling shadows. You'll only unleash horrors beyond your understanding. Stay and learn the truth about your existence. Madame de Pompadour hesitated, searching for a flicker of the man she knew buried beneath layers of despair and darkness. She didn't want to believe he was completely lost. Louis, please. You're stronger than this. Remember who you are. The room held its breath. For a moment, she thought she saw something flicker in his expression, a crack in the sinister mask. But before she could reach him, he roared, shaking the chamber with a fury that made the walls weep. Shadows lashed out like whips, grazing her arm, cold as death. A deep pain shot through her. Leave now, or join the ones who were forgotten. They hesitated, madness creeping in, but Etienne seized Madame de Pompadour's arm and yanked her away, forcing her to pull back. Not here. Not now. He turned and darted toward the only passage left untouched by the creeping darkness. Wait! She shouted, her heart splintering as they began to retreat. But Louis's gaze held her, fierce and imploring, as if he were pleading for her to grasp the truth hidden in the shadows. As they fled, the last echoes of his laughter reverberated through the abyss, mingling with the cries of the souls trapped within. Outside the collapsing chamber, the passage shifted ominously. Madame de Pompadour felt the walls pulsating once again, now feeling more like living flesh than stone. What secrets lay sealed in its depths? And how far would they have to travel to escape the past? Don't look back. Etienne urged, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was leaving something and someone behind. In the chaotic retreat, she cast a glance back. Louis's figure was lost to the shadows, but the chilling sensation of his presence loomed large in her mind. Was this truly the end, or merely a prelude to something even darker? As the echoes of Louis's laughter faded into the distance, unseen shadows began to close around them once more, eager to reclaim what was theirs. What have we awakened? She whispered, feeling the full weight of dread settle on her shoulders. What lay ahead in this expanding nightmare, waiting just around the next turn? Darkness engulfed the catacombs, wrapping around the group like a suffocating shroud as they pulled away from the echoes of Louis. Each escape felt more like a resignation, a retreat from the power that had twisted their lives into a nightmare. Madame de Pompadour's heart raced like a drum in her chest, each thump reminding her of the life reality she'd hoped to revisit. Is this what ambition costs? She wondered, her mind swirling with dread. Stay focused. Etienne commanded, his voice cutting through the thick air as they hurried along the narrow corridors. The flickering torchlight revealed glimpses of ancient stone, cracked walls that looked as if they were holding their breath, shushing the living, but Madame de Pompadour couldn't shake the pang of loss, not for Louis but for who they had all been. As they rounded a corner, the way opened into a vast chamber, the air thick with lingering whispers, snatches of conversation, fragments of fear long abandoned. Inside, the illumination revealed tall, twisted pillars reaching toward the ceiling, vines of shadow creeping along their surfaces. Where does this lead? Lady de Beaufort whispered, her voice trembling. An uneasy silence wrapped around them, settling deeper than mere darkness. "I can feel it," Charles murmured, his wide eyes darting nervously. "There's something here. The relic they were after, I can sense it. Like it's calling to me." Madame de Pompadour felt a shiver trace down her spine. "No," she urged, summoning the strength to stand tall. "We shouldn't reach for what we can't understand." But the moment stretched, charged with a growing hunger for power that hung in the air. The chamber thrummed, vibrating with energy, as if alive, the shadows whispering, eager for a new master. Montmorency took the lead, his gaze fierce. "We need to find a way to end Louis's hold here and banish this darkness. If it's what he seeks, it clearly has to be destroyed." Suddenly, a rift opened in the air, an otherworldly pull drawing them towards the center where an ornate pedestal stood, topped with the relic sparkling, unsettling, promising emotions too grand to entertain. "Do we dare?" Etienne's gaze flickered towards the item, uncertainty palpable. "Yes," Madame de Pompadour declared, her resolve steadfast. "We can't let it fall into the wrong hands. We need to destroy it." As they stepped closer, the shadows coiled around the chamber, rising like an insatiable tide, whispering treacherous truths. "You will fail," they hissed into the folds of their minds. "Fight it!" Lady de Beaufort shouted, lifting her torch defiantly. But the shadows reached out, brushing against their skin, pulling at their courage, whispering doubts. Suddenly, the relic began to thrum, sending waves of energy rippling outwards, igniting a cold fire in Madame de Pompadour's chest. She shook her head, gripping her heart as visions of loss and despair flashed before her. "Just a bit closer," Etienne urged softly, the shadows swirling dangerously close, luring him with promises written in ages long buried. "This could give us everything we could rise no," she cried, breaking through his trance with fierce urgency. "It's a trap. We must hold together." In that moment, they stood on the brink, not merely juggling the relic, but their loyalty to one another. Trembling hands extended toward the artifact, fear melding with determination as they formed a barrier against the encroaching darkness. With her heart packed tight with frantic hope, Madame de Pompadour steeled herself. "We can shine light into this shadow, together." The group joined hands in their shared resolve, creating a shield that flickered brightly against the relentless darkness. "Take it!" Montmorency commanded, as the shadows screamed, the walls rattled, the very air pulsing with threat. With a deep breath, Madame de Pompadour stepped forward alone, outstretching her hand to the relic. "I refuse to be shackled by your power," she declared, unleashing her belief into the relic, channeling everything she had lost, her memories of love and laughter, of trust and hope. The relic ignited, stunning light exploding like fireworks, illuminating the chamber, driving the shadows back and creating a whirlwind of desperate rage. "No!" Louis's voice echoed from the darkness, straining against the force of her resolve. The explosion of light flared brighter, brighter, until it enveloped everything. "You might have been my past, but you will not be my future." With one final surge of strength, she crushed the moment of weakness birthed from Louis's memory, as the light surged forward, burning brighter as it met the relic, exploding in a cataclysm of sound and color. And like that, it faded, the darkness reeling back as the relic shattered into 1,000 gleaming shards that melted into the stone, a soothing balm against the chaos, washing away the shadows one heartbeat at a time. As silence fell, they stood together, breathless. The shadows dissipated, their whispers fading into nothingness, yet phantoms of their former selves seemed to linger still, bound forever in the memories of the past. Madame de Pompadour turned to face the group, tired but alive, bonds reformed in the light of hope. "We did it," she murmured, tremors still lingering in her satisfaction. "Yes, we live to fight another day," Etienne breathed, relief washing over him. The prison of darkness at last dispersed. "But Louis," Lady de Beaufort began, her voice trembling with sorrow. Madame de Pompadour placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "He made his choice in the depths, but we hold the light. Now, we must share our tale and rebuild." As they emerged from the catacombs, bright sunlight flooded the entrance, washing over them in warmth. They stepped into the daylight, each breath they took rejuvenating their spirits, flushing the great shadows away, a tangible symbol of strength rising from struggle. Together, Madame de Pompadour said firmly, looking into each face, "We must tell the world. The truth of what happened here must be known." United, they faced the future, the weight of the past still lingering, yet bound with hope, for no darkness could stifle the light forever, and with that, they walked forward, ready to reclaim their lives and reshape their fates. Now, my friends, this is your moment to make a difference. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will blow your mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this community alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What do you think of this ending? We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and join our journey. Your support matters. Together, let's shine light on the truth.